Dear, dear Ruz, when Arthur asked me to speak today on behalf of your time at Casterton, I felt slightly awestruck at the privilege and responsibility. But as the days have passed, I found myself unpacking all my old memories in just the same way I would unpack my trunk at the beginning of each term. And just as it was at the beginning of each term, the memories are full of comfort and laughter and mischief. I remember the mornings in Lower Four when I was on duty, waking you with the rest of the house, the real-life smell of sleep in your room. How, in a school built on stiff upper lips, you weren't afraid to let us see your vulnerability and to let us see that being vulnerable was okay. And I can still see you, your sleeves rolled back and your hands deep in a sink full of feathers, plucking a pheasant that had struck your faithful old Volvo in the lanes around school. I can see now how capable you were, how you would get stuck in with anything, and how you always knew how to make the best of a bad situation. And I remember how you broke the rules. I remember that Sunday evening you snuck the keys to the swimming pool so you could take us house captains for a swim. I remember the light on the water that early summer evening. And I remember your stash of videos in your flat, the Breakfast Club, St Elmo's Fire, Grease, and the weekend hours spent watching them with you, our bellies full of pot noodles and chocolate and Coke. I think of how in those moments we were, after all, a family just like any other, only perhaps just a little bit bigger. And I remember so fondly your search for a boyfriend, and how in that you were just like we all were, seeking a soulmate to share everything you had to offer. And I remember how every old girl delighted when we heard you'd found Arthur. And how could I ever forget the sweet, sour smell of your chutneys and jams, the trips foraging for blackberries in the wild local hedgerows, the hours their stickiness bubbled on the house kitchen stove, the lines of polished glass jars like jewels at the Christmas fair. I remember gratefully how something about the whole term-long process of their creation allowed us to trust that everything was all right with the world. And of course, I remember how if that didn't work, there was always your rescue remedy. Exam stress, a broken heart on Thrift Tuesday, the ever-present homesickness, all of it could be soothed or fixed by a few drops on the tongue. And I have some today, in case anybody needs some. And Raz, these are just my memories. Asking around, I heard stories about crab sticks and hot chocolate and menthol steams and gossip. One old girl told me about the night you let her sleep on your sofa when it felt like everyone else had given up on her. Another reminded me of how, when you were told at your first flute lesson that you had the wrong-shaped mouth, you didn't let this faze you and simply took up the clarinet instead. Another told me of incidents involving toilet roll and the hedge outside your flat. And I realised that for each of my memories, there are 100 others treasured by every one of the generations of girls you had in your care. And through all those memories, I can guarantee there will be two consistent themes: your deep compassion and the perennial glint of mischief in your eye. For houseful after houseful of hormonal teenage girls, you were totally unflappable, bonkers and gorgeous second mum. That really is quite some achievement. Raz, so many of us regret not keeping in better touch, but I hope you knew just how much you were thought of, how much you were loved, and how full our old school trunks will always remain with everything you gave us. Raz, like every Casterton old girl, rebel or otherwise, I know you'll have known the school motto off by heart: Cor unum via una, one heart, one way. And so, Ruz, I just want to end by saying, on behalf of every single Dobsonite and every single Castertonian who ever had the honour of knowing you, thank you for sharing your big heart. Thank you for daring to do things your brilliant way.